Hi everyone, my name is Doreen, and today we're doing another live episode of Before You Take the LSAT. Before You Take the LSAT is a live interview series where I speak to current students, recent grads, or current lawyers about their career path within the law. The question I'm trying to answer is what can you do with a JD, and also just seeing how one person made decisions along the way in their career path. Today, I get to talk to Caelainn. She is a rising 3L at Columbia Law School. She is a Harlan Fiske Stone Scholar, which is an academic honor. She is on the Columbia Business Law Association as the Director of Programming this past year. She is on the Columbia Business Law Review as a staff member and senior notes editor. And she went to University of Virginia for her undergrad, where she studied economics and English and graduated with distinction. And you also graduated with Dean's List, all semesters. And there's a few other things that we're going to talk about, like you co-founded the Peers Are Listening Society. So we will get to that, but for now, I just want to welcome you and say thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited because unfortunately we haven't had as many women interviewees, and so I'm really excited to be talking to you today, and I appreciate that you're joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Doreen.
Okay, and so for anybody who hasn't watched an interview before, the way this works is I have topics ready to speak to Caelainn about, mostly about her path so far, getting to where she is and the experiences she's had. And towards the end, usually there's time for questions, so if you have any questions, you can submit it a bit sooner, and we'll answer it towards the end. I do want to mention a few things that I didn't say about your background. You were an intern for Judge Patty Shwartz in New Jersey. You worked as an intern at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of New Jersey. You interned at the Texas Advocacy Project, the Securities and Exchange Commission, at the New Jersey Attorney General's Office, and the New Jersey Governor's Office of Constituent Relations.
Yeah, can you tell where I'm from?
I have no idea. I could never tell. Might be New Jersey. No. Anyways. Okay. Well, yeah, again, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm currently a summer associate at Milbank, Tweed, Hadley, and McCloy. So I went to work today, and then I came back here to talk with Doreen. So it's good, and we can talk about that if you want to talk a little bit about
Yes.
summer associate
If
work.
anyone is having any issues hearing us, please let me know. My sister is unfortunately not here today to help out, so if there's any problems with audio or anything like that, please just let me know on the side and we'll see that. So awesome. Okay, so yeah, please do tell us about your experience as a summer associate.
Yeah, so currently I am a summer associate at a big law firm in the city, Milbank, Tweed, Hadley, and McCloy, which is Milbank, and actually they're going to officially shorten their name to Milbank.
Okay.
This coming year. For those of you who aren't familiar with summer associateships, some law students, when they're rising 3Ls, will spend 10 weeks of their summer with a big law firm, sometimes in a litigation department, sometimes in a corporate department, sometimes taking any assignments, kind of like a general assignment system. And so I interned in capital markets for my first few weeks, and now I am in litigation, and it's been really good. Today I actually met with my first client, which is really rewarding. There's been opportunities to do a lot of financial stuff, which is what a lot of these firms do, and also some pro bono.
Cool. So wait, how long have you been with them so far?
So I started May 21st. I'm just gonna get some tea. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just gonna get some tea. I started May 21st. So this, when I close out this week, it'll be 6 weeks.
Okay. Awesome. So when you were deciding where you wanted to go, what were the factors that you were considering in terms of which big law firm you wanted to go to? And were you set on going to a big law firm?
It was definitely, for a summer, an experience that I wanted to have. I knew that I wanted to do litigation, particularly white-collar work.
Yeah.
So that was in the back of my mind looking at firms. When you go through the interview process, I think a lot of people find that they seem homogenous a little bit in terms of their credentials. They do a lot of the same work, so a lot of it is, as cheesy as it sounds, fit. And I was looking for a place where I could work with the people. In big law, you're going to work long hours.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the beast. So there's a little bit of, I wanted to be kind of on a team. So I did my screener interview. I did my callback interview at the firm, and before I made my decision, I did a second look, which is where you can go back and speak to other attorneys at the firms, and I did that to just kind of get a sense, and I had a good feeling. And I also told myself that, you know, if it's not a good fit, nothing's permanent. I can make a change.
What was the sense that you had when you did that second look? What was it about your experience that made you think like this is a good fit?
So everyone was really kind, but one thing that really stood out to me was when I spoke to the women at the firm, especially the women who were a little older than me, associates in the thick of it, and who had children or were family planning. And I saw how they were able to have that part of their life. They still worked really, really hard, but they were able to manage, and whether that meant logging in from home or just people being very respectful of that part of their lives, I thought that was key, even though that's something that's a little bit down the road for me. I really took a hard look at that, and I think that was a big part of it at the end of the day.
Okay, so on that topic, do you feel, so getting into like Columbia Law School, gaining admissions to Columbia Law School and being here, I feel like you have to be very ambitious, obviously, and being a woman, I feel like adds obstacles along the way, especially if you're thinking about being a mom and all of those types of things. So how did that factor into the decision-making process you had? So obviously when you were looking at Millbank, you were thinking about these things when you looked at when you're doing the second look. So how did that factor into your decision-making process when you were thinking about this whole process?
Law school, going to law school in general. Well, I'm fortunate enough to have grown up in a family of lawyers. You could say fortunate or unfortunate, but I feel fortunate, and that includes
both of your parents.
Both my parents,
Okay.
my aunts, my uncles, so everyone. So I had people in my family who also did different things in the law: corporate, a law professor, public service, private practice, who made it work, who enjoyed their work, and so I had some role models there. I will admit, though, maybe even prior to this year, when I thought of myself as a student or as a lawyer, I never really thought of myself as a woman. And I know that might sound a little bit odd. It's not that I was dissociated from my identity.
Right. It wasn't the first thing.
It wasn't the first thing that I thought of when I put on that hat.
Yeah.
As I got a little older and started to get a sense of like the day-to-day, what life looks like and what might want it to look like, I tuned in a little bit more to the role models that I had in my family, both male and female, and I think that was a big key part of it. I think also I'm fortunate to have had a mother and a father who really just made the focus of life and is working hard, but not about prestige, about doing things that you love and being happy and trying to make life better for the ones you love. And I think when that's the focal point, it's really easy to put things into perspective and take steps from there.
Okay. I have more questions about that, but I think I just kind of want to go chronologically.
Sure.
I think it'll be easier for the audience to follow, and it makes for an easier interview in terms of the questions. So before you even started law school, how far in advance did you think about law? Because obviously you had family who was in it.
So when I first started college, I thought I was going to do something sciencey. I took Bio 101 and Bio 101 lab my first semester.
Yeah.
And I was like, at first I was like, this is great. And then I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this lab thing. It's not for me.
Was it a class that made you feel like that, or was it just in general you just didn't like it?
It was smelling like formaldehyde after biology lab. I'm like, I just don't like this. I'm never going to be Dr. Carney.
Yeah.
So,
So wait, how many classes did you take before you came to that conclusion?
one. I gave up those white coat dreams.
Was that a long-term dream that you had?
I don't know.
Okay.
You know, I just thought I was going to be a journalist. When I started college, I thought I was going to do something sciencey because there was a part of me that's like, I don't want to be a lawyer like everybody else.
In the family.
Yeah. And then I was, but
Look what happened. No.
well, I think I'm actually okay with it because
Yeah.
because I tried some other stuff, came forward organically, and it wasn't as much like I don't know what to do.
Default, right.
I'll be a lawyer.
Right.
It was more like
You thought about other options.
I thought about other options,
Yeah.
and I was like, actually, I think I'm kind of good at this, and I think it would be meaningful for me. So,
What qualities did you have that you think made you think like maybe I could do this?
I like to write.
Okay, that helps.
And that's not to say that like in every practice of law you write a ton. Some corporate work is a little bit less writing heavy, but I like to write. I like putting together arguments in my head, and that doesn't necessarily mean like being argumentative, but thinking about persuasive, thinking about counter arguments, concessions. I think there's a little bit of an art to it.
Yeah.
And I think being an economics as well as an English major lent itself to that. There's a little bit in the law, and I think in law school, a sense of thinking about the rational actor, which is like a big idea in economics. And I really liked thinking about behavioral incentives and how people behave, and it plays in a little bit.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, and so clearly you didn't choose UVA thinking you wanted to go into law, but it ended up
That's great.
Yeah.
And honestly, the English department was like home for me. The economics department was good. I went abroad with an English professor. It was home.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
So you took that one class, and so at what point was that it was no longer you wanted to pursue being a doctor, and then you thought about law. How much time was there in between the two?
So my first year of college, I was like, maybe this doctor thing isn't for me. But it was my internship after my first year that I worked at the New Jersey Attorney General's office.
Nice.
I worked in the office of the insurance fraud prosecutor. And I think what really was the turning point was the fact that I found a real mentor in
That's amazing.
one of the assistant DAs.
How did you get that job?
They had a college program, but I'll be honest, having family in law pushed me. I knew where to look.
Yeah.
And I knew when to get the application in and how to time it. And
so did you like reach out? Did you tell your parents like, okay, now I'm thinking about law? Did they ever push you? Did they ever push you towards? Okay, so.
But they expected me to work during the summer.
Right.
One way or the other.
Okay, so then you were thinking about law, and then so you tell your parents, and then which one of them was more like, okay, these are the steps you should take, or these are things you should look at?
They're both really supportive, but I would say my dad
Okay.
really shepherded me through the process. My dad and one of my uncles have been really helpful with the steps through that. My dad is kind of really is the patriarch in our family in terms of like the legal. He's the one who blazed that path. My grandfather was a lawyer, but he was a lawyer in Egypt before he immigrated here. So it's a little different. My dad's the first American lawyer who did this process.
Yeah.
So he really guided me through. He kind of told me like, little things that you don't think about. Like, this is how you write a cover letter. This is what you should highlight. If you don't have a lot of stuff on your resume yet, then enthusiasm is everything. Which it always should be very important. But
enthusiasm when you go to the job interview.
Interviewing, in writing to them, and also just being comfortable sometimes emailing people cold.
Did that work out?
It did.
Okay.
Because I knew they had programs, and I'll be honest, it didn't always work out. Like,
no, of course, yeah.
But it all you need is one thing to work out, and you're no worse off. It doesn't take that much to shoot an email off.
Right. So then when you started working at the New Jersey Attorney General's office that summer of 2013, you found a mentor. Mm-hmm. And who was your mentor?
He was an assistant DA in the same unit, And what I really loved is, I was a college student. I have no legal experience, but he would sit me down and he would go over statutes and be like, this is what we need to charge somebody. Let's go through and think about what each part of the statute means, what we need to think about. If there was a component of, this person we need to find 5 instances of whatever malfeasance. Let's think about what we have. He took me to interviews. He explained during sentencing factors, subpoenas, and took me to court with him. And he didn't have to do that. He really didn't. He would come check on me, and it was really wonderful. I hope I can do that for someone someday.
Pay it forward.
And he now is in Tennessee. He's an assistant United States attorney.
Wow.
And that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So we went to Tennessee to do it. Yeah.
So do you still keep in touch with him?
By email.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but yeah.
How did he become your mentor?
Informal. I found like most mentors that I've really kept have been informal mentors. People that you just kind of get to talking with. Sometimes it's like, hey, can we get coffee? Sometimes it's
Did you initiate that relationship?
it's hard for me to remember, honestly.
Okay, yeah, it's been a while.
I think it was he came to introduce himself to me through like an attenuated connection. His wife had at some point worked with my dad, which was an interesting coincidence. And but then individually, I developed a relationship with him, and would ask him questions, and he was responsive. So, because of my curiosity and his responsiveness, he was really supportive. And after that point, I was like, I'm going to law school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that summer was really transformative for you.
It was, yes.
Okay. And then so after that summer when you went back to school, did you pursue anything related to the law at that point because you knew you wanted to do it?
I just focused on trying to keep my grades up.
Okay.
And I think I was starting to get an inkling that I might be an economics major, but I just started taking classes that I liked. And I declared economics first, and then English when I realized I was racking up those classes, and I just enjoyed it very much. In my free time, though, honestly, I didn't want to think. I ran cross country and track.
Which you still do.
Yes, not as competitively.
Right,
I ran a marathon this year, but that was
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you still run. I meant distance running.
Yes. It's relaxing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to like have fun and chill out in my free time.
Yeah.
And so I guess it shows that you can do that. So the second year, I did work for the school newspaper, and I did a little bit of like the political beat, but that was only a couple hours a week.
The Cavalier Daily.
Yes. So my main thing was like I would just play frisbee with my friends and run and go to track meets, and it was fun.
I think it sounds like you found like a good balance between like, as long as you work hard when you need to, and then you know, the times that it sounds like you were enjoying yourself, you were also, doing sports or something else that's also good for you.
I liked to like be physical.
Yeah.
Turn off the like really analytical part of my brain and just, use a different part of my personality, I guess.
So in the summer of 2014, then you worked as a research assistant. So at the NYU School of Law Center on Law and Security. Can you talk about that a little?
Yes. So I should also mention that I spent half the summer there and half the summer in London.
Okay.
First half was in London. That was
program. Unfocused for a second. Sorry. Okay, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah. Sorry.
That was a program called UVA in London.
Wait, let me just make sure it's okay. I don't know why it's unfocusing. Okay. Just 1 second. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
And I went with an English professor who is just an awesome person.
So that was a different program than what you were doing at NYU.
Yes. So I spent half the summer in London. Yeah. And half at NYU, and I'm just going like chronologically.
Okay.
So the first half was in London.
Okay.
And at that time, I read a lot. It was great, and I had to write a paper. that I knew I wanted to go to law school. So I went down to the Old Bailey, which is the old courthouse in London.
Yeah.
If people aren't familiar with it, and you can just go watch. People wear the horsehair wigs and the robes.
Yeah.
And I watched some proceedings, and I wrote a paper about the theater of the court through the years and how it affected common law, which is something you can do a little bit like softer kind of science when you're an undergrad. So that was good. When I got to NYU, I was helping a fellow do research on economic espionage. So it wasn't the typical legal research that you think of in terms of case law. It was more looking at other nations. So we looked a lot at China, and it was like even little things. So for me, it was sometimes low-level stuff of, you know, this is their outward policy on how they talk about economic ministry. Some things were as little as, this is interesting that they translate some of their pages on their economic ministry, but some aren't. And that's not, of course, you can always find a translator, but there's just another layer of resistance, I guess, if you want to get the information. And that was really cool. The center did a lot of cool things in terms of trying to get speakers. I know they tried to get the former head of the MI5 to come talk, and I remember calling that on. They had me call them, and I was like, I'm talking to MI5. She was unavailable, but it was cool. Yeah.
So out of the two experiences that you had that summer, which one do you think was more powerful for you?
They were both really powerful in
Okay.
different ways. I think, though, as a 19-year-old going abroad, and
Yeah.
it's pretty big.
Yeah.
But maybe not on the legal front. Maybe just on the personal growth front.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's almost, it could sometimes be more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, let's get to the Peers Are Listening Society,
Okay.
which you did during undergrad, so that we can also transition to law school, because we're almost halfway.
Okay, cool.
So
So Peers Are Listening to Society was a peer mentorship group that I started with a friend from the English department
Yeah.
in, well, we got the idea in the fall of 2014. Fall of 2014 was a rough time in Charlottesville. We unfortunately had a second-year student who was killed, and that was really hard because a lot of people knew and loved her. And additionally, we had a Rolling Stone article come out called Rape on Campus, and we had reporters knocking on our doors in sleepy Charlottesville, which
was that unrelated to the girl who?
it was unrelated, but
Okay.
it happened within like 2 months of each other. So
Wow.
we were reeling a little bit, and all these articles were coming out about Charlottesville, and my friends and I were thinking about how we really believe in this place. It's a really good place, but we need to have a support system. So we started looking around, and we realized that there wasn't a peer mentorship group that was just with the school generally. We wanted it to be separate from partying and alcohol or other specific interest groups.
Yeah.
We wanted people to have those interests. That's a definite thing, but we wanted to just have like a space for other people, for people to just come, you know,
Yes.
from time to
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So we went through a chartering process with the school, putting together business plans, pitching the mission, talking with the administration, and it was, at certain points it was an uphill battle because we had to explain what we were trying to do. Was we would like the backing of the administration. The administration was a little concerned because they didn't want to be affiliated with anything that had to do with alcohol, which wasn't what we're doing. But whenever the word social comes into play,
That's what they.
it's a concern. So,
Okay.
But we ultimately needed to get approval from the student senate to get funding, and we did that. That took about a semester, and then my last year of college is when we really got up and running.
Oh my gosh. How long did it take? It took a year?
It took about, so toward the end of the fall is when we started getting to work on it. So it took maybe about a year to really be rolling.
Yeah.
So my friend and I started working on putting together events. We did speed friending, which actually was a huge hit. Which we would do things like we would put like 2-minute conversation starters like Batman versus Superman or whatever, and people actually made friends. It was really cool. We did like movie nights, like Mean Girls movie night, and we would chalk all over the grounds. In the spring, it was of my last year of college. It was a little tough because the person I was working with had other commitments, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep it going. I got lucky though in that I met an underclassman who was really interested and very enthusiastic, and we started to grow it, and we really put together more of a formal executive board, had more events, and when I graduated, the organization was still growing strong, and I think it went through a couple more presidents.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to it, but you also have taken lead at some clubs on our campus.
Yes, never top position.
Okay.
I know I like to hang back a little bit, but that just was something that spoke to me, and I honestly think that club is why I got into law school.
Why?
Well, just based on my interview, they were really interested in why I did that, and I think
What, here?
here.
Okay. Because not everybody here gets interviewed before they're admitted, so.
Yeah.
But that's something you spoke about specifically. Did you speak about it in your personal statement as well?
Yes, because it was such a big thing for me. It was such a hard thing to get off the ground because I didn't know where it was going, and I felt good about it because it was really organic. I wasn't looking for leadership experience. I wasn't looking to do anything like that. It was just something that
You felt a need, and so you responded.
yeah, but it wasn't even like I'm gonna start this group. I was like I'm gonna talk to somebody. I'm gonna do this thing, and and then slowly you're like, oh, now I'm doing a group, which was cool.
So the majority of your personal statement was focused on that?
Yeah, the process of doing that.
That's so interesting.
And I know
'Cause
they say that you get an interview if they're on the fence about you, and so I think that the discussion of that was helpful for me. I don't know.
Okay, so then, and you never took a break in between. You're straight through.
Straight through.
So while you were a senior, you were studying for the LSAT, or did you study the summer before?
I studied during. So I took the February LSAT in 2015. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I did my
Junior year.
Junior year. I took
Wow.
it. And then I applied in September 2000.
Wow. So you were studying during your junior year while you were in school.
Mhm.
Did you tell your friends that you were studying, or you just kind of did it?
I told them. They were really good people. I lived with my running friends.
Okay.
Who are still like my best friends to this
Okay,
day.
that's awesome. They sound like really good people.
Yeah, they're awesome people. They're phenomenal humans. And honestly, like people have so many opinions, or there's ways to study for the LSAT. For me, the approach was do a little bit every day, and that's just that's what worked for
For how
me.
long?
Like if I had 20 minutes, like now obviously when I got closer to the event, you double down a little bit more, but I was just like let's just do consistency.
Yeah.
And that's what worked for me.
Yeah. Okay, application process. Were you applying widely, or did you kind of know where you wanted to go?
So I did early
admissions. Wow.
Here.
Okay.
Because I knew I wanted to come here.
Why?
A couple reasons. One personal reason is I wanted to be back up near my family.
Mm-hmm. Was it hard being away when you were at UVA?
I loved it because I had my little group
of
friends. I had my home away from home, but it was I wanted to be back near my family because those friends we were all scattering, going on to the next adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew I probably wanted to be a securities lawyer. I knew there were some major professors who were taught here that I wanted to learn from, and that there were certain like internship opportunities that I could maybe do while I was in school.
Because you're in New York.
Because I'm in New York.
So who are those professors, if you feel comfortable?
Yeah, so one big professor is John Coffey,
Mm-hmm.
who is an expert in the securities field. He's testified before Congress. I took securities regulation with him.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's brilliant. We're very fortunate here to get to talk to a lot of professors of different fields. I took a class with Catherine Judge. She clerked for Judge Posner and Justice Breyer. A wonderful person, and taught me corporations and legislation. And
what has been your favorite class so far here at Columbia?
Well, for different reasons, I really did love securities regulation because I do like the intricacies of the rules and the statutes, but I also loved evidence. And I think that's because it just feels like the quintessential lawyer class, like thinking
Who was the
about labor.
professor?
That was Professor Capra, and he was visiting from Fordham, so he teaches here somewhat often. He was great. Put together a lot of hypotheticals for us. It was really enjoyable.
I think we'll leave that for the end, okay? There's a question coming in, so I think,
Okay.
well, how much time do we have left? Okay, yeah, we'll leave it till a little bit later. Okay, so you knew that you wanted to go to Columbia, you applied early decision, so you didn't apply to so many other schools, I'm guessing
I
then.
applied to a lot of schools because applications are usually rolling, so you don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
but
right.
the deal is if they accept you,
Then
you have to come. And I think I was comfortable with that decision because I knew that
That's what you wanted, you
that's
had
what
no
I
doubt.
wanted.
Yeah,
But it's not for everybody.
yeah,
So I applied to like 12, 13 schools or something. And you know, I applied widely, had some safeties, some reaches, and it was good. I overall was pretty calm during the process because I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was like, if it doesn't work out this round, we're gonna regroup and we'll try again.
So did you have an idea of what you would have done if you had to apply again, like during the time that you had?
I didn't really think that far ahead, but I either probably would have tried to get a position as a paralegal or work as a consultant, which is what a lot of people did with economics backgrounds.
Okay. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about your experience at Columbia, and the things that you've done during the summers. So what was your experience like the first year at Columbia? What were your expectations, and how did it differ or match?
I knew that it was going to be a challenge, and it truly was. I'll admit that I was very lonely, especially the first semester.
You know how many people I've heard that from so many people
Yeah.
at this point, just because like I've been talking to people about this specifically in the interviews,
Yeah.
and people keep talking about that. Okay.
Yeah, I would call home and cry.
Yeah.
A lot. And it wasn't even just about the work, it was just feeling like I was kind of on an island by myself. You know what I meant? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When really we were all on the same island, just
Yeah.
looking
But
at each other.
I think what it was, like, everybody just was too worried to like
Yeah.
be social.
And I worked so much. I probably did more work than I needed to. I briefed every case, and everyone has a different style. Ironically, when I stopped doing that and relaxed a little bit, my grades got better. But you know,
Yeah.
I just thought you go
Yeah.
to law school and you have to do brief these cases and whatever. But it got better, and I made some good friends. I had a study group, and I never thought I would do a study group, but they're good. It was full of like wonderful people.
I feel like the school generally is full of wonderful people.
Full of wonderful people, yes. But I didn't interact with a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially one of them.
So I mean, you got the Harlan Fiske Stone Scholar, which is an academic distinction. So, what are some things that you did that you think worked for you in terms of doing well academically?
I think what I would try and do is I would read a lot. What clicked for me later on was that I didn't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
So if there were outlines or someone else had done something before, I could start from there. And for me, what was more important was doing practice tests, applying the information to fact patterns,
Yeah.
rather than just writing something out. If I did my work all semester and had a threshold understanding, I didn't need to outline from scratch in order to teach myself the doctrine. But everyone's different.
So a lot of it was looking back at old outlines and then trying to apply that to a fact pattern. So you would do practice exams throughout the semester?
No, towards the end of the semester, but rather than like I was pretty religious about keeping up on my reading.
Yeah.
And taking notes, and I pretty much never skipped class, which I know isn't the style that all law students use. when approaching class, but I would just be like, this is my job right now. My job is to go to class, to read, and because I did that, I didn't feel like I was playing catch up, so I would start with another outline, fill things in where I thought it was necessary, and then really it was like, doing practice runs on tests and stuff like that.
How far into the semester would you start doing practice exams?
Probably not more than a month before the actual exam, but I would start looking at outlines maybe halfway through.
Okay. And before you even started law school, did you read any books or anything to prepare you?
No.
No?
I worked as a hostess in a restaurant, and I wanted to take that time. I was down at the beach to just take a minute and do something different.
How was that?
It was the hardest job I've ever had. Honestly, I respect people so much, and I am way more polite when I go to restaurants now.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience.
That was your first job in like a service industry, huh? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's cool that you had that experience.
Yeah, I wanted to have it because I knew once I went to law school, then it was time to do legal jobs. Like that was the expectation. My resume needed to say that I was doing legal jobs. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to have that.
Okay, cool. So then, until there's a rule that before December you can't apply for anything for your first summer, your 1L summer. Mm-hmm. So, did you have a plan for what you wanted to apply to for your first summer, and how did you approach that?
I wanted to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Newark, New Jersey, which is what I did.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You set a goal and you reached it. So how did you do that?
So because I knew that was what I wanted to do, I had my eye out on their application, and they actually had an early application. A lot of places didn't open their application till January. They opened theirs in December, so I applied. There was a bit of a legacy. A lot of family members years and years ago had gone through the office, and there was something that I wanted to experience public service in the place that made me.
Sorry. I don't know why it keeps
It's technology.
I know, right? I actually haven't had this problem before so much. Okay. Okay, looks better now. Awesome.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I wanted to do some public service in the place that made me. I'm not from Newark, but I am from New Jersey, and it's district-wide.
Yeah.
And it was so rewarding. I met wonderful people who really cared about their work. I'm still friends with the interns. We went out a couple weeks ago to catch up, and it was a really good experience.
What was it about that specific position that made you want it so much?
I think, my uncles and my father had said that when they went into that office and they got up every day to go to do their work, they knew why they were getting up in the morning. So that was interesting, and I felt like the truth that bore out when I was there. Another thing that I really liked, though, was that kind of functionally and how they ran their intern program was that they didn't put you in a specific division. So I did some work in civil and criminal, and as someone so green in their legal career, it was good to just see a little bit of diversity in the kind of work that I was getting to help on.
I just want to say I appreciate that you're so open and honest about the fact that the previous experience that your family has been helpful to you, but I know that you also work really hard to get to where you are, but I really appreciate that you're open and honest about that.
It's hard. I think using connections from family is not wrong. You can't rest on your laurels. So I think the only way we move forward sometimes, really, really move forward, is standing on the shoulders of others. So building off of their work, but you have to bring it. You have to work hard because you won't get far if you don't work hard. Because maybe someone else will get a look at your resume, but your resume has to speak for itself.
So, did that shape the way that you thought about your career path that summer? Did it shape the way that you thought about your career path? Did the expectations you have? I really like exploring that. If the expectations you had matched what you actually experienced. Because I think it seemed like you did know quite a bit about what it would be like when you were there. So,
It pretty much matched.
Yeah.
It was like a down to earth work, where people really cared about what they were doing. I really appreciated that. Working with these prosecutors, they really cared about their cases, but they really cared about why they were doing it. And I remember at one point they took us to Torah jail, and they said, you need to think long and hard when you make a charging decision. This is where you potentially send someone. You've got to believe that you can prove something beyond a reasonable doubt when you go to trial. And I loved the thoughtfulness of that, and that it wasn't about winning in numbers for them. It was about let's try and help our community.
Doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so how was your second year compared to your first? Actually, before your second year, how was OCI, the on-campus interview process?
It was tiring. I think just being in a hotel with no windows around a lot of people is tiring, and then having a lot of callback interviews. But more than anything, I'm grateful. Going to a school like this, they tee it up for you, and they get you set in a good position to get a job offer. So it's tiring. You're surrounded by a lot of people, and you hear them getting certain callbacks and whatever. But everything's fine, and
yeah.
I felt that I landed where it was good for me to land. So it was tiring. But then when it was over at the mid-August, I went to the beach. The beach with an offer, which was wonderful.
Okay, so did you have outside help for that at all? Like, did you talk to people like 2Ls or anybody else? I just want to clarify. I think it's important for me to clarify things. On-campus interview, in case anybody doesn't know. On-campus interview is just the process that you do for a lot of big law firms come to a hotel. I was going to say campus, but they come to a hotel, and then usually through a lottery system, people are able to do a certain number, up to 30 interviews, and then there's a callback process, and then there's a second look process if people want to take that opportunity, and that's usually how people get their position for once they graduate, as well as a summer associate position for after the second year.
Yeah, the goal is full-time employment after graduation.
Right,
ultimately.
And that's what you should do before you even start your second year, which is crazy.
Yes, it is crazy.
That's why your first year grades are so important.
But be happy, because you're gonna be okay. Land on your feet. Work hard. Don't get too hung up on the number. I really am a firm believer in that. You'll land where you need to land, and that's the most important thing. Just being healthy and happy. I really believe that. And I'd started to do better in my classes when I really adopted that philosophy and stopped looking at the people next to me.
Yeah. It's so hard because of the curve. I think it even if you're not that type of person, I think most people in law school are the type who're just competitive. A lot of people are competitive.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard with the curve. You start to think about other people.
I also wised up a little bit. I was like, I'm fortunate to go to Columbia.
Yeah.
If I do well enough to get that JD at the end of the day, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just graduate.
So how has your second year been different from your first?
I was a lot more involved in activities. So I was a director of programming with CBLA.
Mm-hmm.
I helped with a lot of fundamentals of business law lunches. So
Mm-hmm.
one that I really handled was a white collar lunch with a panel of attorneys from big law firms, and Professor Coffee was a moderator.
That's cool.
It was very cool. It was, and organizing that. And then I helped organize lunches at the law firms. I was also a staff member on the Columbia Business Law Review, and I worked on editing articles for publication. And then I also wrote my own note, which is published. It should be out now, but for some reason I don't think it's actually out. Which
Robo-advisors.
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk about that? Or you want to see the whole... it's the robo-advisors and the suitability requirement.
Yes. So Professor Catherine Judge was my advisor.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful student note editor who really helped me through the process. And it was essentially about these platforms that do kind of wealth management for the retail investor. So for someone who doesn't have a ton of money, so like, you know, probably like you or I, who wouldn't attract the attention of a human investment advisor, say like a Vanguard or something like that. And the SEC, under the Investment Advisors Act of 1940, has rules making sure that advisors provide suitable, personalized advice. And it's interesting. Usually that's borne out through how the advisors interview incoming clients and get their information, but these robo-advisors tend to do shorter intake questionnaires, sometimes just multiple choice, and the idea is that it comes from behavioral psychology.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of virtues, but there are a lot of questions about, okay, so then how does the SEC's guidance fit with this kind of model? How do we make sure that they're giving personalized advice? The same standards that apply to a human advisor might not work to put on these platforms. So the thrust of my note was really not about what the standard should be, but about ways for the industry and regulators to collaborate to figure out how to make a standard.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was a good experience writing it. I actually really enjoyed it.
Throughout the whole process, because I know it takes a few months.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the whole process, what do you think was the biggest takeaway for you, whether or not it was on the topic that you wrote about?
That it's a learning process.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an expert about what you're writing about.
Yeah.
You just have to be thorough, curious, and really willing to dig in and revise. I had my draft written, and 2 weeks before it was due, I basically rewrote it.
Wow.
And it was okay because I was kind of in the rhythm at that point. I was interning at that point also at the same time, so that was interesting. But with Judge Patty Shwartz,
yeah.
but it was good, and because I had a lot of guidance from my faculty advisor and from the student note editor, it was relatively painless.
Okay, let me see how much time we have. Okay, we have just about 10 minutes, and we have a few questions. So I'm just going to ask you a little bit more about your experience,
Okay.
maybe with the judge, interning
Okay.
for the judge, and yeah, if there's anything else that you want to talk about, we can, and then we'll go to the questions maybe for the last 5 minutes or so.
Sure.
Okay. So I just want to hear maybe a little bit about your experience, finding the internship to work with Judge Patty Shwartz, and then, yeah.
So Judge Schwartz, who is a brilliant, wonderful, kind of person that I hope to be one day, used to work at the New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office in Newark, and while we were interns, she was very vocal about saying, interns, if you want to come over and meet me, please do, because her office, her chambers were right across the street. So I did, and in speaking with her, during the Chain Internship Program, I said, when do you take applications? She said, during the summer, so I put in an application, I interviewed with her clerks, and she had a winter and a spring program, and I decided that I wanted to do both. Because I was full-time in the winter, so I really got my rhythm, but winter's not long enough to really work.
Yeah.
So then when I went part-time in the spring, I kind of had a sense of how things worked. And it was wonderful because the clerks really helped me with my writing. The judge would, very busy, but take times to explain things to me, the procedure of, working in the Court of Appeals, or, how argument works. And it was a very warm place to work where people were very thorough. I think I became a better writer and better at checking my work from working there.
Yeah.
And I was sad to leave.
Yeah.
I was sad to leave.
Do you still get a chance to go visit ever?
I probably will go
Yeah.
back to Chambers when I'm done working this summer. they were very clear about coming and visit, and I have been meaning to reach out to a couple of her clerks because they are, you know, a couple years ahead of me in legal career and good mentors.
Yeah. Okay, and then maybe a little bit about the SEC and Attorney's Office.
So the SEC is actually where I got the idea to write about robo-advisors because
Oh, nice.
while I was there,
I was curious about that. Okay.
robo-advisors were a big new thing coming up. And so at the SEC, I worked in the Office of Compliance Inspections and Examinations. So that was just looking at registrants, so advisors in the industry, and seeing if they complied with rules. So it wasn't the enforcement division where they bring actions for violations. It was more like, you know, let's check and see if you're on track. Most of the time, even if you weren't on track, you know, we would just work to get the issue resolved. And it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. As someone so junior at the time that's still in college, I kind of got a sense of, you know, reading a little bit more legal language and how to think about business issues as well.
And how about we did talk about that, sorry. I guess the last, question I want to ask you is a little bit more broad, but I'm just curious what keeps you driven, or what drives you?
So, honestly, I think it's wanting to do good. This is different for everyone. I'm a bit of a spiritual person, and I do think that I have been given certain gifts, and that they lend themselves to this field, and I think I can help people if I do this work. And I think that's why I'm here at the end of the day. So that's why that's what keeps me going. And you know, when you put your best foot forward anyway, you feel better about yourself. So that's what keeps me driven.
Do you have an idea of what your purpose, larger purpose is? Within, I guess.
Within law?
Yeah.
You know, I would like to, I'd like to become a good oral and written advocate, and I hope to maybe affect some law. We'll see how things change, you know, through my advocacy, and I hope to help individuals and touch their lives, even if it's, you know, indirectly.
Okay, I'm gonna let you look at these questions. There's quite a few, and maybe we can answer one or two of them.
Sure.
Before we finish the interview.
All right, let me just lean in.
You can hold on to this if you would like. Let's see if they're.
I was not waitlisted at any schools, but
Okay.
I do know a little bit about
The waitlist process?
The waitlist process.
So the question was just, were you waitlisted at schools? Mm-hmm. If so, how did you proceed with these schools? Okay.
So essentially, because I did early.
Early.
I was fortunate enough to be admitted. I wasn't in that position, but generally a good thing to do is to reach out directly to the admissions office. And I know that I was kind of surprised when I learned this because it's not necessarily the case in undergrad, but really vocalizing your interest and saying, hey, via email, I'm still really interested. Was there something about my application that didn't quite push me into the blank admit pile? I'm really enthusiastic. That flags things for them. And that's, all you can do, and continually follow up and reiterate your interest. But it's absolutely appropriate to reach out to the admissions office and restate your interest.
Right, the letter of continued interest, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do know some people have done it really informally, will even pick up the phone. And so you would send a letter and say, just want to reiterate, I don't know where you are in the process. Use your judgment about how often you'd want to do that. But you should advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Did I receive any Caelainn awards? I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is either.
How many interviews did I take on? So during my OCI process, I think I did 18 screener interviews.
Wow.
And
So you got a good chunk of the it's out of 30, right?
Yeah, it's out of 30. You really don't want more interviews than that to prep.
Right. Yeah.
And then I maybe had like 8 or 9 callbacks, maybe, which is so the screener interviews are 20-minute interviews. They're going to ask you questions about your resume. You want to know a little bit about each firm, so that you can ask informed questions, but you don't really need to do it, at least in my opinion, a deep dive at that point. It doesn't make sense to do so. They don't even have the time to get into it. Then in callbacks, you interview for 2.5 hours with multiple people, and then sometimes you go to coffee or lunch to continue the conversation informally. And that's when I would do more research about the firm, particular people who worked there, who I hope to emulate, their practice areas, any recent deals or cases that they'd worked on. But it was only once I had the callback that I would deal with the next hurdle, and then once I had the offer, that's when I said, all right, now I'm going to really sit down and think about fit, and I did second looks. Yeah.
I actually haven't heard about people doing second looks, but it seems like maybe not everybody takes advantage of that.
It was real. So I did a second look at my firm, and honestly, when I started the interview process, I didn't really think about my firm. I wasn't really thinking. I had no idea, and so I was just like, I just hope I get a job. And so it was really organic. And when I met the attorneys there, I was interviewed by a couple of female partners who took their work really seriously. I admired them, hoped to be like them, but also talked to some more junior people who I knew whose shoes I would more likely be in sooner. And I thought, okay, they work hard, but they seem happy.
Yeah.
And I can do that. I can do that. And like anything else, if something doesn't work out, then make a change.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for tonight's interview. It's actually just 10 o'clock. So thank you so much, Caelainn, for doing this interview today. I really appreciate it. It's nice to hear your perspective and your path and how you made decisions along the way. If anyone is interested in seeing future interviews, you're welcome to subscribe if you'd like the video, any of that stuff. And I hope to see you guys. All right, bye guys.